Many thanks for your company on the marketplace today. Let's settle for the very first story. Minister for Roads and Highways, Kwesi Amoakwata, says government has directed the release of funds to settle debt-owed contractors. A greater portion of an estimated $1 billion is earmarked for outstanding payments. Prince Appiah was at the stakeholders meeting in Kumasi and our reports.
Government indebtedness to contractors is a major challenge for players in the industry, as some of whom have threatened to demonstrate. There has even been suggestions for government to legislate on the matter as part of measures to regulate management of such debts. Sector Minister Mr. Amoakwata's deputy Kwabna Owusu-Ediomi says the situation amounts to cost to government due to implication to project execution.
Delay in paying for work done by the contractors, as the chairman rightly so indicated, is also affecting us. The Ministry of Roads and Highways and the government of Ghana is paying huge interest on delayed payment. About 80% of the IPCs that I've had the privilege to go through prior to the Honorable Minister's endorsement are claims on interest on delayed payment. This is very worrying. Whilst we are here, we need to strategize and see what we can do. Huge amounts are being paid in projects as price fluctuations because projects travel beyond their initial contractual completion period. Communities also do not receive the early benefits that these ongoing projects were to give them.
The minister then gave assurance funds are available for payment to begin soon. He spoke at the strategic meeting in Kumasi for stakeholders in the road sector.
And I want to assure all contractors in this country that the president, and for that matter, the government, is alive to this responsibility. And I am happy to announce that His Excellency the President has directed the Minister for Finance to give $1 billion United States dollars to mine sector, greater part of which is to go into the direct payment of all outstanding and delayed road payments.
Mr. Amoakwata hints contractors on cocoa roads previously under the Agric Ministry will be paid first beginning next week.
All contractors working on cocoa roads will be receiving letters from the various agencies starting from next week, because we have selected the critical ones and they may be asked to go back to work. I therefore want to appeal to them that they should continue to work closely with government.
Meanwhile, the ministry wants its directors and engineers to always ensure they operate within budget. Prince Appiah reporting.
And back in Accra, an advisor on labor matters, John Isiape, says due process should always be followed in dealing with redundancies in organizations. The labor advisor believes recent happenings within the banking sector are signs that due process is not being followed through, even though labor laws provide ample opportunities to do so. He was speaking on the business edition of PM Express with Philip Namfuri.
Law fundamentally is procedure. When you get the procedure wrong, everything you have done is null and void. So there are consequences. Because redundancies in Ghana have gone, yes, a lot of them, there are issues with them. I mean, GCB, Anglo Gold, yeah, all over the place, CBG, that's concerned. So many issues. But such fundamental errors are unpardonable. Again, if we don't address them, they become the norm. If indeed there are workers, managements that are having such challenges, the first point of call is to seek advice. And there is no need to rush. And that's why the law has been couched in this form. That it gives ample time. My brother has said that it's a relationship.
Yeah.
Indeed, look, anyone to be declared redundant, it doesn't mean that person is non-performing. It doesn't mean that person has misconducted him or herself. Redundancy means that, look, we are all doing well, but some have to go painfully. Some have to go. And there's a criterion for even selecting those who must go. And it has to be open, transparent, equitable. Normally, we say last in, first out. That's the only basis for selecting. But we know behind the scenes there are some, in fact, if you open it up, those who want to go are those who don't want to go. But if we are all following procedure and we build confidence in the procedures that the law has established, I don't think we'll have these challenges. But as it is, for me personally, we must be law-abiding, we must respect the law. And for entities like banks, and you know recently what has happened on issues of ethics and other
corporate
policies.
Everything, yeah, true.
For us, for a bank not to be following laid down procedures, the law, I have a problem.
Meanwhile, head of HR consultancy at Lene Services, David Mills, is calling on human resource practitioners to build capacity in their respective areas. His call comes as a number of workers have lost their jobs in the banking sector. He believes management of organizations should heed to the advice of HR practitioners and their independence should be guaranteed.
Themselves must build capacity, demonstrate competence at the highest level, show that they are business savvy, so that CEOs can respect them and trust their advice. Because whether we like it or not, these things come back to hit the chest of the HR. So it could be the CEO behind the scenes, engineering all these things. But if people are called, they call the HR, that what did you do about it? So we need to step up our game where our competence, our advocacy, and our understanding of business, and also pushing for results is concerned. But I think that companies should respect HR and not just pay lip service to the fact that HR is strategic and we have a seat at the table. Let's respect what HR people do, not interfere with their work more importantly. The interference is probably one of the biggest upsets in HR management. CEOs give instructions, fire this person. And I hear it countless times. You send somebody, you recruit somebody for a company, 3 months he's sacked, or 6 months he's sacked, 9 months he's sacked. And when you have a conversation with the HR, the MD said we should fire him. And in as much as the HR gives a professional advice that, Chief, this termination is unfair. If this guy goes to Labour Commission, we've lost. He insists that you fire him. And before you know, he brings his family member to replace him 3 months after. So that's the problem.
This is live on the marketplace. Let's do one of our top stories today. And trade tensions between the U.S. and China are set to be escalating as the Trump administration increased tariffs of $200 billion worth of Chinese imports. This latest round of tariffs has been sent shivers down the spines of financial markets with increasing uncertainty. My colleague Philip Namfuri is here to take a look at the current developments and its implications on the economies of Africa. Good afternoon, Philip. Welcome.
Thank you.
Now, so quickly bring us up to speed with how this whole thing began and where we are now.
Okay. So, for a period of time, Donald Trump, as the president of the USA, has been adopting a policy of protectionism. He wants to boost manufacturing. He wants to ensure that the American industry is competitive, as it was in the 60s and the 70s. But with that, he feels America's biggest trading partner, China, is more or less lowering that effort they are trying to put together in trying to ramp up their manufacturing industry. So they have increased tariffs again from 10 to 25% on goods that are coming in from China to the US. So it's going to make it harder for people in China to bring their goods to the US, and also going to make it harder for people in the US to import what they need.
But what happened all of a sudden? Because prior to this, we heard that the Trump administration was likely to ease these tariffs.
That will mean getting into the psyche of Donald Trump. Unfortunately,
very unpredictable.
Yeah, very unpredictable. But we put together some infographics just to keep us up to speed, so we can just look at that now and then have a discussion.
All right, so these are some highlights of the trade-off between China and the U.S. The possible effects, decreased competitiveness was cited as well.
Yes, in the U.S., reduced efficiency of the manufacturing industries and higher costs when it comes to goods in the U.S. But as you can see, China says they would retaliate. And China's economy has been debt-fueled for a period. They are using debt to prop up their economy. If all of a sudden exports get expensive and their industries become uncompetitive, you can imagine the ripple effects it will have on the economy. But with this comes the spikes in the financial markets. As soon as there's always the noise of it, then people start selling off and move from risky assets to less risky assets such as bonds. So they move from the stock markets, and you can see the massive sell-off in the stock market. So some of these, the president of the US will tweet and the markets will move, but talks are going to resume, and we hope that something will come out of it.
Now, if China should retaliate, what are the possible areas that we think China can also use against the US?
I'm sure they would also target some goods of the US, but let's keep this in mind. China is one of the largest holders of US debt. So there are several implications there, and the world doesn't benefit. We're already in a period of slow growth. We don't want this to further escalate such tensions. Yeah. So, yeah.
And what could be the possible impact on African economies like Ghana's?
Okay, so Ghana, if you check the data from the Bank of Ghana, as a percentage of exports with countries, China makes up 16.6%. So Ghana, China, one of the biggest standalone countries. So it provides an opportunity for us to benefit in terms of exports coming to China, exports from China to Ghana, but there are also implications on our local industries. We can see from our manufacturers right now, they want to also try and ramp up their operations. They're complaining about the reduction in the import duties and whatnot. But we need to find a space where the US, China, biggest economies in the world, doesn't send negative ripple effects in the global economy. I mean, it's good to grow your manufacturing industry, but a world-renowned economist, Joseph Stiglitz, said it's very hard for the US to get back to the state of manufacturing that it had in the 1960s and 70s. So Trump's rhetoric is more or less much ado about nothing. But let's keep our eyes peeled and see what's going to happen.
All right, many thanks for your time. Of course, we'll be keeping our eyes skewed to this particular development and bring you up to speed with the latest updates. Let's turn our attention to the local front here. And fire outbreaks have persistently hit several markets across the country over the years. However, some markets have been spared the destruction caused by such fires as a result of precautionary measures put in place to forestall their occurrences. Alberta BCU has been taking a look at one of such markets, the Kaneshie Market Complex in Accra, which has not experienced any fire outbreak in the past 14 years.
The Market Complex was constructed in September 1979. Currently, it is one of the well-structured and relatively organized markets in Accra. 4 institutions, including GCB Bank, National Investment Bank, SIC Life, and the Accra Metropolitan Assembly, each hold 25% equal shares in the market complex. For some time now, prudent management practices have prevented disastrous fire outbreaks. These include constant servo checks and other safety measures put in place. Managing Director of the Kaneshie Market Complex, Edmond Kofi Dufour, explains further.
We ensure that our tenants operate within the rules. One major rule is that we don't allow outsiders in as electricians. It's a no-no. We have a maintenance department who handles all electrical issues here. Another thing that we do is rodents. They chew the insulators around the cables. And when they chew them, the wires will break and it causes fire. We do regular, on program, on schedule, baiting of them. This is done every quarter. Every person cooking has a form of fire fighting equipment by them. Almost every person has a fire extinguisher, which we check and make sure that if they need to be renewed, they are renewed per the date that is on them. Again, those who don't have the fire extinguishers, we've made them to improvise with wet buckets of sand. If you should use what I will again refer to as naked fire, charcoal fire or any form of fire, and it comes to our attention, we sanction you.
The Queen Mother of the markets, Lydia Akwe, lauded efforts of the directors for ensuring total security for the market women.
So we had Driani wa market ha, who was through how, who was here how, Obia Poma, Amokwa rounds.
We have good organizers who help us in managing the market by doing daily checks in the market to ensure our safety. Fire service personnel are also doing their job. They won't hesitate to prevent people who go against the rule.
We went round speaking to some market women who were very conversant with knowledge of fire prevention and were equipped with fire extinguishers.
Actually, the market itself has this thing. They have the fire service community here. Yeah, so day in, day out, they come out to educate us on how to prevent fire. Actually, we normally use the gas. We don't use charcoal here because of fire outbreak. So we don't use charcoal. All we use is gas. All those cooks around the market, they use gas. Oh, almost mean protecting me.
I started 2 years ago, and I was taught how to protect myself in case of fire outbreak.
The Kaneshi Market Complex is looking forward to put up a modern multi-purpose structure to improve business. Alberta Bisiu's report for Joy Business.
Interesting developments there, but from one local market to yet another market, the Ghana Stock Exchange and MTN Ghana recorded the highest volume of 4.3 million traded shares, followed by GOIL with 108,100 out of the 14 equities which participated in trading this week. Stock market analyst Bertha Atubiga has just joined me in the studio for some more updates. Bertha, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
So quickly, before we even look at the equities, MTN Ghana, what's the magic one? Because I know it went down earlier in the early part of the year, but it's starting going up significantly.
Well, I wouldn't say it's going up significantly, but we are seeing huge volumes of shares trading in the equity, and that's even expected to happen next week and even by close of today's trading session. Now, on Monday, MTN added 2 pesos to its share price, and then we saw it close at 70 pesos per share, and then lost 3 pesos on Wednesday. And Wednesday, MTN traded over 26 million shares on the exchange, and that sell-off, it means that there was a buyer and there was a seller. But because of the worth of MTN on the stock market, we saw the worth of the entire exchange actually come down to about 57,310.89, 57,694.24 million Ghana cedis. So that is the impact that it had on Wednesday. We didn't see the worth of the exchange go up, and that resulted in the equity coming down by 3 pesos. And by close of yesterday, it traded further, like 4.3 million shares were traded in the equity again, and we saw it add another 3 pesos to close at 70 pesos per share. And now what is happening is that there are still more trades that are going to take place in MTN, and that it's actually going to dominate the market, especially next week.
So what could be causing this turnaround in trading?
Well, this trade does not necessarily signify or speak that the share price of MTN is going to continue to appreciate. It is telling us that people are selling off these volumes and then others are buying at this. You know, the IPO price was about 75 pesos, and now it's trading at 70 pesos. And considering the fact that it traded 26 million at 67 pesos, that was even a lower price. So it means that these investors who were ready to sell off are people that are ready to take the risk of losing part of their investment value in MTN, so that others can also come on board at a lower price. So that does not necessarily mean that, but we're going to see like much volumes of shares trading in MTN, especially
tell us about other equities as well.
Well, this week has been very active. We've seen gold traded some shares on the market, added 10 pesos to it. It lost 10 pesos on Monday, but by close of today went up by 2.17% to close at 2 cedis 35 pesos. So it means it added 5 pesos, because as a week open it was 2 cedis 30 pesos per share. And we have Standard Chartered Bank losing 3 pesos at the beginning of the week. By midweek it also went up further by 3 pesos again, and it's back to 19 pesos. It went down to 18.97 and now 19 pesos per share. And we saw EGL going down by 4 pesos. We had Standard Chartered Societe Generale, it lost a peso. SPL gained a peso at midweek to close at 3 pesos per share. And ETI lost some value to close at 14 pesos per share, and by close of yesterday's trade it went down further again by 2 pesos and currently at 12 pesos per share. So the week has been very active. The worth of the exchange has gone up by about 359.6 if you compare week open to week close. And the major indices, that's the composite index and the financial stock index on the stock market, closed yesterday with the composite index closing at 0.52%. That's a week-to-day gain, and it has a 4-week loss of 2.72%. It has an overall year-to-date loss of 8.67%. And Ghana happens to be the worst performing market in Africa now.
That's too bad.
Yes, with a negative of 8.67%. And we also saw the financial stock index recording a year-to-date loss of 8.56%, and it's lost 5.57% in 1 week and 2.14% in a week on the stock market. Just a quick one, I mentioned that Ghana is the worst performing. We have Nigeria being the second, 8.06% negative yield, and we have Tanzania, the Dar el Salaam Stock Exchange, returning negative 5.77%. And the best 3 markets currently in Africa, we have the Nairobi Securities Exchange, that's in Kenya, with 10.65%. We have Egypt, 7.86%, and the Johannesburg Stock Exchange with 7.13%.
Thank you very much, Beta, for that update, and we certainly have Beta again next week for more developments on the stock market. But before we go, MTN Ghana says disruption in its services caused by fiber cuts is on the rise, having suffered 382 incidents between January and March this year alone. Ashanti region recorded the highest number of fiber cuts of 159, representing 41% above Western, Greater Accra and Central. Corporate Services Executive of MTN Ghana, Sam Cranting, blames the situation on construction works, among other factors. Ohimin Teria has more.
Ghana Telecom's chamber says destruction of underground fiber optic cables cost mobile telephony operators in excess of $3 million last year. MTN Ghana says it lost almost 39 million Ghana cedis in revenue between October 2018 and February 2019 due to such destruction. It spends almost 7,000 Ghana cedis to repair a single fiber optic cable destroyed. For instance, the company spent 7.5 million Ghana cedis on repair of fiber optic cables in 2018. Mr. Cranton says the state lost over 17 million Ghana cedis in regulatory fees and tax. Despite huge commitments, disruption of fiber optics resulting in service disruption or shutdown persists. Mr. Cranton was speaking to JoyNews on the sidelines of media and other stakeholder forum in Kumasi.
Sometimes we suffer double fiber cuts, triple fiber cuts. On the 9th of April, for example, we suffered 5, which, brought down a significant part of this country. That happened on the 12th of April as well. On the 12th of April, it went on to 6 fiber cuts almost simultaneously. So it causes revenue loss, and what we have done at MTN over the last couple of days, we've sought to calculate the revenue implications for us from October last year to February last year. When we did the calculation of the downtimes of the network, which resulted in revenue loss. We have approximately lost about 39 million Ghana cedis in terms of revenue. But then we have taken it a step further because we want to bring it home to the authorities and Ghanaians, in the sense that when you calculate that if we had been able to realize that 39 million in terms of taxes and regulatory fees, we have lost that money as well. For regulatory fees, we estimate it at 7.8 million Ghana cedis in terms of regulatory fees that would have gone to the NCA and GIFEC. The GIFEC is the institution that is in charge of rural telephony exchange.
And on that note, we wrap up this afternoon's edition of Marketplace, bringing to the end this week's in a series of Marketplace. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji Riafi. Have a great weekend.